Hi, it's Ileana, and today I'm going to be discussing disclosure. I'm going to be discussing some corroborating points from my secret space program testimony with what Linda Moulton Howe had disclosed on June 8th, 2022 on her Earth Files presentation. So Linda has been in contact with a source that is military aerospace, and that source had shared with her that Space Force now has the USS deep space vehicles that have charted 22 star systems and cataloged planets, and that they're working with the Nordics and the tall whites. So the USS Curtis LeMay, the USS White Vandenberg, and the USS Helen Cotter deep space crafts, they have human crews with tall whites and Nordics connected with them on the crew rosters, helping them to traverse deep space exploration. And they're visiting different star systems and cataloging who lives there, what species, the cultures. They're doing deep space studies of the planets. So this has been going on since 2003. They've had a ship since 2003 doing this. And now they have more. And this is what the aerospace military source disclosed to Linda, what she shared with us publicly on June 8th. And these deep space crafts are powered by quantum drive systems, quantum drive engines, or the QBR warp drive. There's an alternative called the QBR warp drive, and also the quantum drives for deep quantum tunneling to do deep space travel. And the Intercept, which I had been on Planetary Corporation's experimental craft, the Intercept, that had quantum drives, two of them with ring fields. So basically, huge ring fields outside of the ship and the quantum drives inside, two quantum drives. So these ring fields created sort of like a warp bubble, and the quantum drives would activate. And when you combine that with crystalline technology, you get to go faster than the speed of light. So these ring fields create a lot of electromagnetic energy field and to activate the quantum drives. And when you put crystalline technology with that, they are able to do faster than the speed of light. So that's an experimental craft. When I was on it, the Intercept, and it's long cigar-shaped craft. So the fact that Linda's aerospace military source said that the USS deep space vehicles use quantum drives to do quantum tunneling, that coincides what I was recently disclosing in my two books about the Planetary Corp deep space vehicle exploration technologies. Quantum drive, they've upgraded their ships to quantum drive systems and crystalline systems as well, integration. It wasn't an easy process because they had started with plasma warp drives. Those ships have been upgraded, and the quantum drive systems have been upgraded as well. So that's wonderful disclosure. It corroborates what I have been basically discussing since 2017, openly and publicly. As well, this is the next data point is so interesting. Linda Moulton Howe's source also said that bismuth is used in skin synth layers with magnesium and zinc metallic layers to nullify gravity on extraterrestrial crafts. One of those crafts, well, actually 3 of them, the Manta crafts, had crashed in 1947 in the Roswell incident. There was 3 crash site zones, LZ1, LZ2, and LZ3, and LZ2 craft. That one was the most intact. So the parts of it were taken to different Air Force bases, Holloman Base, I'd imagine Area 51. So those crashes happened near Corona in New Mexico, and there was 5 bodies retrieved. They had rough reptilian scaly-like skin, rough texture. They probably were gray hybrids mixed with reptilian genetics. 5 bodies recovered, taken to Air Force Base hospitals. The craft was taken, and that was shot down by an electromagnetic energy beam weapon. We had that in 1947. The ships crashed. But going back to nullifying the gravitational fields inside the craft so they could fly out in space, and they can do these weird maneuvers. They don't have to make left turns, right turns. They're basically flying very quickly. That's done with the nullification of the gravitational fields with the bismuth skin layers attached to the craft, to the hulls of the craft, so they can do that. That's done for ET crafts. Apparently, the ancient tall grays can travel through space with thought consciousness technology and temporal energy vibration connections. That's something else that was mentioned. I know some species, the Andromedans, the Pleiadians, have these abilities as well. So that's interesting. But on the planetary corporation's Mars bases, I had been talking about this as well. The human SSP assets are working with Nordics, with Nordic assets. There's exchange programs going on with the Nordics. And Linda's source had mentioned that the Nordics and the tall whites, the blondes, the tall blondes, are on the USS deep space vehicles, crewing with the human Space Force assets. So Planetary Corp also works with the Nordics. The Nordics had designed my Neuralink neurocore implants, energetic implants. That's technology that's 300 years more advanced than the Neuralink implants, what Elon Musk designed here. The Nordics had also taught me that bismuth is an elemental component that is used in man-made portal systems, Stargateway portal systems, to activate them fully and keep them stable. That's what Nayada, one of the female Nordic specialists, had taught me when I was on the Mars PLC base 5. Also that gold and silver act as component activators along with the bismuth on different spacecrafts in order to design the navigation nav systems and to basically have those elements as part of the craft to make them more streamlined for space travel, for faster space travel. That's what Nayada had taught me. She was 5'9". She had long blonde hair, green blue eyes, typical Nordic female, and she was wearing a white uniform or a smart suit. And I had spent about 3 months with her learning this stuff from her. And the fact that Linda mentioned that Nordics work with Space Force crews that pilot USS deep space vehicles. Well, I worked with the Nordics. I was part of a Nordic exchange program for a couple of years. Planetary Corp loaned me out to the Nordics because they work with a Nordic faction that was protecting Earth space and Mars from being invaded by reptilians. And Jean-Charles Moyen, who is a French-Canadian secret space program experiencer, had also talked about seeing tungsten-like crystalline elements in some of the ARC ships. And I had seen bismuth crystalline applications and being incorporated into the various portal systems. What Niata talked to me about and taught me, I had actually later seen it in man-made portal systems. And it's also being integrated on SSP crafts, some of the experimental ones. So this is all corroborating information. As well, I've been doing some remote viewing on the origins of the reptilians. And they're not native to the Milky Way galaxy. They are not. They came through a huge portal system, like a large wormhole in different crafts. They came in triangular, arrow-shaped craft formations, and they came in through the dreadnoughts, those huge, round, cylindrical crafts with pointed things on the bottom. It was silver, blue, gray. The crafts were immense. So reptilians, original, the Draco, the Sakara, they're not native to the Milky Way galaxy. They came here for something very specific. They came here for energetic sources of activation. They needed energy that certain ancient spacecrafts have. This is what they wanted. Plus, they want human energy to feed off of as well. So not all reptilians are negative or bad, but the Draco, the Sakara, they're not native to the Milky Way galaxy. They came from another universe. They're not from this original universe. They're not from the local galaxies even. They came through a huge portal system. It's a natural portal system that they forced open and came through in many Armada ships. And their dreadnoughts carry plasma cannons on them, which is, they're planet destroyers. So, you know, they weren't genetically engineered by another race originally in the Milky Way galaxy. So they came from far off elsewhere, not from our universe, not from our galaxies, and they came through a portal system. And then they systemically started to build out their empire. They were in Orion, they were elsewhere, they were part of the Lyran Wars. So they were part of destroying Atlantis, they were part of destroying Maldak. It's planetary history, galactic history is huge. That's another piece of news that I was seeing. And I'm not surprised because when I was in Nachtwaffen, Rager, I had Zagor, who is a reptilian insectoid liaison to me. His species were engineered by the Draco genetically. And I got to see some of their dreadnoughts because they were flying right along with the Nachtwaffen craft. The Nachtwaffen human crews did not allow full reptilians on their craft, but they had Zagor, the liaison, and other liaisons, hybridized liaisons working with us. So I've seen these dreadnoughts, cylindrical, elongated crafts. They're humongous. They look like bullets, and they're menacing with the plasma cannons mounted on them, and that's illegal. But the reptilians have them, and the Draco and the Scar are very aggressive. They work behind the scenes to take over planets, and we're their servants. We're sort of secret slaves to them, if you will. And also I have some information about Area 51. I had been abducted and kidnapped to Area 51 to the underground S1 facility, bioengineering labs, where I had, unfortunately, been splicing human DNA with about 22% of gray DNA, creating human gray hybrids that were grown in the plasmatic fluid of the regeneration tanks. So that underground facility had that in 2015, and they were growing human hybrids, human gray hybrids. And then they would be picked up by the human crews on saucer-like craft. They would come park by the facility underground. Once these, human gray hybrids fully maturated in the tanks, they weren't grown from fetuses. They were grown in the tanks fully. So in plasma fluid, where the genetics was mixed in with the plasma fluid, and that would grow them. Once fully maturated, they would come out of the tanks. They would acclimate to being awake. Somehow they were able to put souls into them to activate the bodies, and soul transference exists. The technology exists through electromagnetic container fields. You can take one soul out, swap it out for another soul in different bodies. So these beings had souls to activate the bodies, and then they would be taken away to be trained to acclimate in human society, to live among us. So we had human gray hybrids interacting with us in 2015 and before that. They had infiltrated the surface human dwellers. And Ashiana Dean in her Voyagers book had talked about this. So that program was happening in Area 51. Just imagine human gray hybrids looking like us, walking like us, talking like us. They were fully integrated in our society. They had more psychic abilities. They were more intelligent, stronger, faster, and slightly more taller looking and muscular than us, both the males and the females. So that was being done in Area 51 in 2015 and earlier. I had seen that. That's also in my books. I had been working in that genetic facility doing the splicing of the genetics with human and gray, 22% gray DNA. And again, it's scary that these hybrids, once they maturate in the regen tanks, they're taken away by human personnel and trained to integrate with us. Basically be humans 2.0, the upgraded Homo sapiens sapiens, but they're not true humans. They're not organic us humans. They're infiltrators that were taught to be us, to be designed as upgraded humans. So that actually happened, and I hope that that program has been cleaned up, because recently Ileana Denon has talked about that human mothers are used as fetus carriers of the grays, various gray species, the tall grays, the smaller grays, which reptilians have programmed also, that the human mothers are abducted into hybridization programs. The fetuses are put in, the genetic gray fetuses are put into the mother. She carries it to a certain term, couple of months, then she's abducted again, the fetuses are extracted and grown in these fluidic sac wombs. Then they have hybrid children that they're presented with later on sometimes to form heart connections and to invite these human gray hybrids to bond with them and to integrate with human society, to create these backdoor invitations, which is horrible for these mothers. And what these grays are doing is horrible. This still sometimes happens. So the grays want to be us. They want to interbreed human genetics back into their system, but they're part of a hive mind, and so are these genetic human gray hybrid children. They are not self-sustaining minds like we are. We have free will. We have free will choice. They don't. They are connected to a hive mind, to the hive queens. that control other gray species. Just imagine being part of a hive mind, being linked. Your mind is not your own. You're controlled by a queen, by queens, by large gray queens. That's what happens to these hybrid children. They don't have their own free will choice. And they want to integrate that into human society through these mothers, through these surrogates. That's wrong. That is abusive, emotionally, physically. That is hurting humans, because the hybridization programs are horrific. These mothers are experimented on. Their ovaries are experimented on, their wombs, their stomachs. It's not a pleasant process. But there have been other human gray hybridization systems going on, and programs where you can grow fully grown human gray hybrids that were integrated with us. And again, Ileana Dean warned us about this in the early 2000s in her books. And unfortunately, that came true. I hope that's not happening now, and I hope that's been cleaned up, like I said. But it was happening, and because I have skills with genetic DNA splicing and dicing, I had done that in the cybernetics labs on the Mars PLC basis, and I had been a geneticist in my Atlantean lifetime. I'm very familiar with how this is done, and unfortunately, that was part of my work in Area 51. So this is, the hybridization is atrocious. There's more than one way to do it too. There's through the fetuses and the earth mothers, interbreeding grays with humans, and through growing them in tanks with about 22% of gray genetics. Then they're taken away to be trained to integrate with us. I think this is despicable, and I find this inappropriate, very inappropriate, but it happened. Humans participated in this. Area 51, bioengineering lab, S1, and there's S2, S3, S4, S5, S6, goes deep down under the ground. This system. What we see on the surface, those military bases and hangars and landing pads, that's just normal human military. What's underground, those are the real structures. Those are the real laboratories where this stuff was going on. And of course, reverse engineering of crafts that had crashed on Earth by the Greys, Reptilians, and other beings. So this has been going on since the 1930s and 1940s. This has been in place in 70 to 80 years. And I have a customized search algorithm that searches keyword terms from my testimony experiences, ET, UFO, SSP. I've had multiple experiences. So I have customized search algorithm that searches the intranet and the internet for disclosure information that's similar to my experiences. So then I can go in, read the stuff from the results, and if it matches up to my experiences, I will then go and transcribe and listen to the original interviews, presentations of those other sources, and I will include it with my own research, of course, giving credit to the original folks who presented it. But I will do comparison and contrast how it is similar to my experiences, because I believe in releasing all of my research disclosure archives, my experiences, and how it corroborates with other people's disclosure. So I'll be doing this from now on more often in videos and in books, releasing this information. So this is what I had to share for today. So thank you so much, and namaste.